All right, let's talk about metabolism. We're going to really decode what's going on with your body's energy burn, and we're pulling all the science straight from Jeff Nippard and Chris Baracat's awesome guide on body recomposition. The big question we're tackling today is, are you really stuck with the metabolism you have, or do you have way more control than you think? Let's find out.
You know the feeling, right? You have that one friend who seems to eat pizza and ice cream all day and stays super lean, while you feel like you just look at a donut and gain 5 pounds. It's so frustrating, and it's really easy to just throw your hands up and blame a fast or a slow metabolism. But is that really the whole story? Let's dig into what the science actually says.
So when scientists and coaches talk about metabolism, they're usually using a more specific term: total daily energy expenditure, or TDEE for short. And look, this isn't some kind of mysterious, magical force. It's actually pretty simple. It's just the grand total of every single calorie your body burns in a 24-hour period. I love thinking about it as your daily energy budget. But where exactly does that budget get spent?
Well, it turns out your energy budget is basically split into 3 main categories. The biggest piece of the pie, by far, is your basal metabolic rate, or BMR. Then you've got physical activity, which is way more than just your workouts. And finally, there's this smaller but really fascinating piece called the thermic effect of food. Let's break each one down.
Okay, let's start with the absolute giant in the room, your basal metabolic rate. This is the foundation, the baseline of your entire energy burn for the day.
And when I say giant, I mean it. Your BMR makes up a whopping 60 to 75% of all the calories you burn every single day. Think about that. This is just the energy your body needs to keep the lights on, to power your brain, keep your heart beating, your lungs breathing. It's the energy you would burn even if you literally just stayed in bed and did nothing all day.
So how do we even figure out what that baseline number is? Well, in a lab, they'd use fancy metabolic carts. But for the rest of us, we can get a really solid estimate with something called the Mifflin-St. Jeor equation. It looks a little complicated, sure, but it's just a formula that uses your weight, your height, your age, and your sex to calculate that baseline burn.
But hey, if you don't want to break out the calculator, I get it. Here's a much easier back-of-the-napkin way to get a pretty good ballpark figure right now. Just take your body weight in pounds and multiply it by 10. That's it. So if you weigh, say, 180 pounds, your BMR is roughly 1,800 calories. That's your starting point before we add anything else on top.
Okay, let's move on to the next piece of this puzzle. The part that we have a ton of control over. The calories you burn from all your movement, which we just call physical activity.
Now, physical activity isn't just your hour at the gym. It really breaks down into 2 separate things. On one hand, you have your formal, planned workouts. But then, there's this kind of secret weapon called NEAT. That stands for Non-Exercise Activity Thermogenesis. And this is everything else. Fidgeting your leg at your desk, walking to the mailbox, doing chores around the house. All those little movements that you don't think about, but they really, really add up.
And this is why NEAT is so incredibly important. It is by far the most adaptable part of your metabolism. It explains so much. You can have 2 people with the same weight who do the exact same workout. But if one is a construction worker and the other has a desk job, their daily calorie burn could be hundreds, even thousands of calories different. NEAT is the X factor. It's the key reason why metabolism varies so much from person to person.
All right, let's talk about our final component. Now, it's the smallest piece of the puzzle, but it reveals something so cool about how your body works. It's called the thermic effect of food, or TEF. Okay, get this. Your body actually has to burn calories just to digest the food you eat. How wild is that? But here's the kicker. Not all foods are created equal in this department. Fats, they take the least amount of energy to process. Carbs are kind of in the middle. And protein, well, protein is in a whole other league.
So the main point here, the thing you really need to remember, is that your body has to work way harder to digest and process protein than it does for fats and carbs. What does that mean for you? It means a higher protein diet can actually increase the total number of calories you burn throughout the day. It's another perfect example of why the whole "a calorie is just a calorie" idea is a massive oversimplification. So, now we have all the components on the table. Let's put them all together and see what this actually means for your personal energy equation.
So just to recap, your total metabolism, your TDEE, is simply the sum of these 3 parts. You start with your baseline burn, your BMR, which is the biggest chunk. Then you add your activity burn, which is both your workouts and all that daily NEAT.
And finally, you tack on that little bonus food burn from the TEF. That's the whole equation.
And you know, this is the most empowering part of this whole conversation. Your metabolism isn't some fixed trait that you were born with, that you're just stuck with for life. No way. It's a dynamic, living equation. And while you can't change things like your age or your height that influence your BMR, you absolutely can influence the other variables, your physical activity, your NEAT, and the thermic effect of the food you choose to eat. You are in the driver's seat.
So that really just leaves us with one final thought, one final question. You've just seen the science, you've seen the full metabolic equation, and all the parts that add up to your total energy burn. So the question is no longer, is my metabolism slow? The real question is this: now that you know the equation, how are you going to change the variables? Thanks for tuning in.